As a nonprofit grassroots lobbying organization, Leaders for a Better Community believes that residents, stakeholders, and hardworking families have the solutions to the most pressing issues of the day. Whether it's improving our system of public education, job creation, or public safety reform, it's your ideas that should be the driving force behind thoughtful public policy. Join our fight for a better quality of life at lbcmke.org, paid for by Leaders for a Better Community. The Forum 2, exclusively on YouTube Live, weekdays from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. We tackle the tough issues: political, social, cultural, and racial. It may not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. Check out our website, theforum2.com. Call in live, 414-395-0484. Check us out. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Today is Thursday, October 15th, 2020. 19 days from today is the presidential election of 2020. Early voting in the city of Milwaukee will start on Tuesday. And we're in the final stretch here, guys. There are something like 14 million people that have already voted. So this election is already underway in a lot of other places in the country. There's a couple of things that I want us to consider, because this is going to be an election unlike any other for a variety of reasons. And I don't have to tell you what the reasons are because you've seen it every single day of this presidency. But the rushing through of an appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court is particularly troubling for every reason conceivable, because this election may come down to, and I hope it doesn't, let's hope it does not, but we've seen it before. And if there's something that has happened before, either in this country or in this world, it can happen again. I didn't think that there'd be a rise of fascism in the Western world ever again, because there was a war where 20 million people were killed to try and prevent the spread of fascism. And lo and behold, here we are all over again. But the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett is going to stand as this symbol of the Trump era. I mean, not just her stances, not just the things that she's written, like the things that she believes in and she supports. And I'm not going to chastise her about her faith, because I'm not that kind of person. But I will say this: of the currently the 8, she would be the 9th justice appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and she will get confirmed. The Democrats cannot do anything. She'll get confirmed. She will be the 7th either practicing Roman Catholic or a justice that was raised Catholic, because there were some justices that are on the court that were raised Catholic and they became Protestant. And I say that because diversity is extremely important. And having 7 of 9 justices either being Catholic or raised Catholic, there's not a lot of diversity there, because I wouldn't think that 7 out of 9 Americans are Roman Catholic. Even though there are different political affiliations, and the presidents that appointed these justices to the bench are from Democratic affiliations and Republican affiliations, these justices have their faith in common, which can be troubling because it can polarize the court on a handful of issues. But the fact that the Trump wants to make sure that his legacy, which he essentially tarnished himself, but as tarnished as his legacy is, he wanted to live on by the person he is putting on the U.S. Supreme Court. So there will be decisions that will be handed to this court as soon as November 10th. I believe they're deciding on the Affordable Care Act. And I wish I could predict how that is going to go, but I also believe it's going to be the first test for newly appointed Amy Coney Barrett. And here's the thing: once she gets on the court, the conservatives are going to have a 6-3 majority, and we probably won't see, and these things can change. But the next opportunity to get a liberal appointee, let's assume Joe Biden wins. I really hope Joe Biden wins. I really hope you guys vote. I really hope you vote. Let's assume Joe Biden wins. There very well could be zero appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court in Joe Biden's first 4 years. Let's say Joe Biden just wants to get the country righted again. He wants to set Kamala Harris up to be the first Madam President of the United States, because I think that's very conceivable. And we'll be able to tell almost immediately if, in fact, the Biden Harris ticket is successful, how Joe Biden may be taking a back seat, and we may see a lot more of Kamala Harris, especially for someone who is a vice president. We may see more of her the first year, year and a half, 2 years. We may see her out on the campaign trail an awful lot during the midterm elections of 2022, which will probably be as consequential an election as the one that's coming up in 19 days. So you're not done voting, by the way. The midterm elections in 2022 will be here before you know it. And the campaigns for the midterm elections in 2022 are going to start January 21st, 2021. So we shall see. A little nervous, but thus is life in America. Kamala Harris gets elected. She becomes the 47th president of the United States. First black woman, first graduate from a historically black college and or university. She may not even get a selection to the U.S. Supreme Court in her first 4 years. The next conservative, the longest serving conservative on the court right now is Clarence Thomas. He was appointed by George H.W. Bush. I think I was like 10th grade, 11th grade, 1991-ish. He's in his early 70s. He still could serve on that court for 10 more years, if that is indeed the case. Because it seems like he would wait to retire. Clarence Thomas, if he did, and I can't predict what this man says or what he does. He's Catholic too, by the way, or he was raised Catholic. He would want to retire and step away from the court unless that other retirement plan happens, the same retirement plan that happened to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, may God rest her soul. If that retirement plan happens to Clarence Thomas, well, then Joe Biden or Kamala Harris will get a selection to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I hope whoever they select, they ram them right through. But he could serve on the court for 10 more years. And if Clarence Thomas, the oldest serving conservative on the court, serves another 10 years, that means Joe Biden's first 4 years, no appointees to the U.S. Supreme Court. That means Joe Biden doesn't run again for re-election. Kamala Harris, her first full 4 years, no selections to the U.S. Supreme Court, maybe in the midterm election of Kamala Harris's first term. And first of all, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris aren't even elected yet, but we need to start looking that much into the future when it comes to judicial appointments. And there's other judicial appointments too. There's federal courts, federal appellate courts, which Democrats, we never look at that stuff. We just never consider it. But the Republicans have been planning for this perfect storm since 1973, since Roe versus Wade. The ultra conservatives, the evangelicals, they have their dream scenario. I don't believe they got their dream president in Donald Trump, but guess what? They'll take it, because they get to solidify their views on abortion and other things via the courts, because they may not be able to win elections with majorities, legislative elections. They won't be able to win more seats in Congress, more U.S. Senate seats, because the cohort of Americans that have that very, very conservative, very, very Republican mindset, there's just less and less of them. And that's just demographic stuff. There's less and less of them as time goes on. And so what they can do is they can solidify their viewpoints for life via the courts. The Democrats don't do that. And it's come back to get us. This has got to be, I can't tell you how many election cycles it's been where we have fallen into this trap. In 2004, we tried to tell people that George W. Bush was going to get a number of appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that should have been a reason to vote for John Kerry and John Edwards, but that didn't work. And George W. Bush appointed John Roberts, and he was in his early 50s as Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. He's going to serve for 30, 35 years. And so as the country moves forward and we become more diverse, and we begin to re-examine the problems that have always existed in this nation, and we have either ignored them, we've accepted them, or we've lived our lives around them, we're coming face to face with the disparity, with the discrepancy, with the discrimination that is in America. And now we have no choice but to do something about it. And one of the ways in which we can get justice is not necessarily through the police department, but we're going to talk about the police on today's program. You don't necessarily get justice that way. Sometimes you can get a semblance of justice through the courts, but Democrats have not prioritized federal judges like we should. Therefore, the things that we want to see the Constitution become, not an originalist, not in the same frame of mind as the founding fathers, because those people are not suitable to create a document that is reflective of what America is right now. And I'm going to leave it at that, because some of you love the founding fathers for whatever the reason is. A couple of things. So there's a protest, pretty notable one's going to be taking place in Wauwatosa. Jay-Z's Team Rock is organizing a rally to demand justice for Alvin Cole, the 17-year-old who was shot and killed by Wauwatosa police officer Joseph Mensah at Hart Park. That's today. The rally will begin at 2:30 p.m. at 7300 Chestnut Street, Wauwatosa. So right there at Hart Park. I was actually contacted by a Wauwatosa resident last night, like, oh, Sherwin, they're descending on our town. Nah, they're already in your town. There's nobody doing any descending. But isn't it amazing how much it takes? So public sentiment, murder, a lack of trust in law enforcement, the tactics that have been used by National Guard and local police. So it wasn't just the Wauwatosa Police Department. It was also the West Dallas Police Department. They were snatching people up off the streets. You know, it was a part of their strategy. And I don't know if Governor Evers' fingerprints are on any of this, but I'm going to tell you what, the midterm election of 2022 is going to be an interesting one, because Governor Evers has been responsible for having National Guard troops on standby because they didn't want another Kenosha. Okay, I get it. But when you have National Guard and you have multiple police departments descending on an area to try and enforce what I believe is an unconstitutional curfew, and then one of the strategies, it's not the only strategy, but it's a very notable strategy, to snatch up residents of Wauwatosa. And, people are leaving their houses. Like, you can't tell people stay in the house at 7 o'clock. You can't do that. You cannot do that. There might be an emergency. You got to go check on your kids. You got to go pick your kids up. You got to go to work. You got to come back from work. You got to go back home to grab some. There's a number of reasons why when the clock strikes 7, you cannot tell a free American, don't leave the house. Okay, so that in and of itself, that's a problem, and I believe it's unconstitutional. And these $1,000, $1,300 fines that people are getting for violating the curfew is disgusting. But one of the strategies of this Gestapo of law enforcement in Wauwatosa over the days of protests is they would just take people and just arrest them. Not even people that were in the protest crowd. And there were some people that were in the protest crowd, but even residents who were outside of their homes, who were just standing in the street, just watching things unfold. Maybe they were out there so they can get a good view of what's happening if they needed to protect their property. Police were taking those people and arresting them, and those people say, no, this is my house. I'm just standing in front of my house. And the cops, who cares? So what? They make examples out of these people. Now, they also did that with a lot of protesters and protest leaders. They just grabbed them. And we've seen that in Portland and in Seattle, where those were federal agents that Donald Trump had installed, but there was local cops that were doing the exact same thing. Because if there's a protest organizer, and a lot of people do their organizing on social media. So, and the cops watch social media. Like, there are police that are assigned to watch our Facebook accounts. And you know what I say to that? Have at it, bucko. You might learn something. You might become a better cop by reading what we post. But some of the protest organizers will be very specific and explicit about where they're going to be, what time they're going to meet, and everything else. And so the police who are monitoring their chatter on social media, they go and they grab their protest organizer. It could be when they're walking by themselves. It could be when they're going to meet up with another group of people. And here's what happens. This is a part of their strategy. And this is why all of this stuff needs to be exposed, because the police can't do this. And Governor Evers, to whatever extent he is responsible, he's going to lose re-election. In fact, he's better off not running in 2022, because every single thing that Governor Evers has done that has been challenged in court, the Republicans are going to use against him. And remember, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win the White House, the Democrats are going to do poorly in the midterm election. And Tony Evers only won by a single percentage point anyway. And I don't believe that he has done enough. He's tried, God bless him. He wasn't cut out for this. He wasn't cut out to be governor of the state of Wisconsin that Scott Walker had essentially wrecked for 8 years. Tony Evers is like your high school principal, like kind of cool, kind of dorky, decent person, but not a cutthroat, conniving, contriving politician. He's not that, and you can't become that. But I think that he's going to pay an awful price for some of the tactics that are being used by law enforcement. And so law enforcement in Wauwatosa, so they would snatch up a protest organizer, and then here's what would happen. The group of people that were out there to demonstrate, and let's say it was to be a peaceful protest. And now the peaceful protest has descended into chaos because one of the protest organizers or several protest organizers were just taken away. And you don't know where they are because they're not exactly taken to the Wauwatosa jail right away. And so now you have the protests that are descending into chaos because the one that was leading it has now disappeared. And so instead of protesting and staying on message and staying on point, the people that have gathered are spending their time looking for the protest leader that was arrested. And that was a tactic that they used. Good morning, everybody tuning in on YouTube Live. Today is a weird day I guess every day is a weird day. Like for me, what's today, Thursday? I have to literally look at the calendar some days because like my Thursdays are like my Saturdays and my Tuesdays are like my Wednesdays and my weekends almost don't matter. So I have to look at the calendar. But today is, I don't even know why I'm bringing this up. I'm probably gonna get some heat for it. It's police appreciation day. Hold on, I gotta get it right. Oh no, Milwaukee Police Department Appreciation Day is today. Of all days, it's today. Organizer that I've known for some years. In fact, he ran for political office about 10 years ago, a guy named Tracy Dent. There's a number of organizers in the city of Milwaukee, and Tracy Dent is one of them. And I don't know who he's working with or who he came up with this, who came up with this idea with him, or if it's his idea on his own. But today is going to be Milwaukee Police Department Appreciation Day. I got a press release here. It says, join us. And then join us is in capital letters. So it's bigger. Join us. Don't laugh, Shirley. Join us, the first annual Milwaukee Police Appreciation Day, Thursday, October 15th, 2020, 9 a.m., District 1, MPD, 749 West State Street, Milwaukee. Join us for the first of this annual event to bring, is there really a typo? Join us for the first of this annual event, bad grammar, to bring the community and local law enforcement together. And then it goes on to say, because our hearts beat the same, so should our commitment in creating the same shared rhythm toward peace. Also, we are asking people to drop off treats to you local police districts. So not even your, but you local police district. For more information, call Tracy Dent at 414 blank, 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 96. So there's a bunch of different directions I can go. Let me say this. So if you're going to do that, knowing the relationship that we have with the police department in this city right now and what we have seen and what we have endured and the tear gas that they've thrown and the violent tactics that they have used against these people, I would say this to the police. And don't say I'm anti-police. I'm not anti-police. I'm anti-bad behavior, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, citizen, non-citizen, immigrant. Don't be a bad person, because you can be a good person and have any kind of profession or any background or any nationality. I'm anti-bad person. But I would say, if you're a police officer and you're happy that today is Milwaukee Police Appreciation Day and people are coming to the different precincts and dropping off treats, don't eat those treats. I wouldn't. Somebody bakes you some cookies, somebody bakes you some brownies, and all of a sudden you feel kind of high in about an hour or so. I wouldn't. G Collins, good morning, Sherwin and all. G Collins, I need one of those t-shirts in a 2X. Oh, thank you, G Collins. If you go on over to the forum2.com and you click on the tab that says the shirt shop, by all means, order many. Christmas is coming up. These make great gifts. A nice stocking stuffer. Loretta Cunningham says good morning to everybody. Tutu Reeves, good morning to you. Gail Williams says good morning. She's got her 2 cups of coffee. Bonita Jones, good morning. Bourbon 952000. I got to say that better. Bourbon 95 2000. That's better. Separation of church and state is hogwash. It totally is. Talking about the members of the U.S. Supreme Court, where when Amy Coney Barrett gets confirmed, she will be the 7th justice, either a practicing Roman Catholic or raised Roman Catholic. And if in God we trust is on the money, and America is a capitalist country, then there is no separation of church and state. Now, there's supposed to be, like, you can't say, oh, here's what it says in the Bible, let's make a law based on the Bible, but we still make laws based on the Bible. And I bet, for the simple fact that why homosexuality was not recognized for marriage purposes was because it's anti-biblical. Sandy J, good morning. Show me love. Good morning to you as well. Douglas Dickerson says good morning, Mr. Hughes, and I say good morning, Mr. Dickerson. Dorian Higgins, glad you're here, sir. Good morning to you. Justin says you got some low frequency feedback going on or something. It's weird. Is it better? Because I heard some of the squelching. I've got 5 different volume controls. I'm not good at this. I'm better than I was, but it's because of one volume is out of sync with another volume. I got the computer volume, I got my mixer volume, I got the volume on the music that I play, I got my microphone volume. It's a lot. Tina Houston, good morning. Happy to be here and a great topic. Happy to have you here, Tina Houston. But let me get back to, why is it so difficult? Because all the protesting in Wauwatosa, which some of it turned, a little violent. Wasn't too bad. I guess any destruction of property is bad, but there's a larger issue because lives have been destroyed permanently. Buildings and property, most of it is insured against damage. And I know it's really inconvenient for a business owner, especially if there's some business owners they're down with the cause. There really are. They get it. And there's some that are even okay with some of their property being destroyed because they get it. Fair enough. It's still terrible and it's awful and it's inconvenient, but if there's a police officer that has killed 3 people, 3 men, 2 Black, 1 Latino, in a span of 5 years, and the district attorney cannot find just cause to bring charges, I probably should talk about that. There can be evidence to charge somebody. You know how low the threshold is to arrest somebody? Do you guys have any idea? I can be arrested on suspicion. Sherwin, we don't really know it's you. We think it was you that did it. We're not sure. We got a vague description. We're going to arrest you and we're going to find out if it was you. So even if it wasn't you, we're going to arrest you anyway. The threshold to cuff somebody and to stuff them is really, really low. It is. Black man talking on a microphone in his house. He did what? All right, we're going to go get him and arrest him. And then it turns out it was another black man talking on his microphone in his house. Okay, sure, we're going to let you go 72 hours later because they can hold you for 3 days. But the threshold is really low to arrest somebody. And so Joseph Mensah, he wasn't arrested. He's still getting paid. still getting paid. Talk about job security. And so people were upset that the district attorney didn't charge in any of these cases. And with each subsequent case, it gets worse. Imagine if Joseph Mensah gets back on the job and maybe they give him like some more time off, even though he's on vacation because he's still getting paid. He's still adding to his pension. Let's say when this blows over, because there'll be another situation that will divert our attention, not the families that have lost their attention will never be diverted. In fact, they'll be part of a larger coalition of grieving families who have been harmed by the police. But let's say he gets back, Joseph Mensah gets back on the street. Because at this point, if they're going to still keep him on the force, I've never seen job security like that in my entire life. He killed 3 people. Property was destroyed. There have been multiple nights of protests. The National Guard was staged at State Fair Park. They're snatching people up off the streets for one person. The only way in this country that you can get that kind of protection if you're black is if you're president of the United States and you have the Secret Service, or if you're a member of a police union. Now I'm starting to get it. Because any other black man that pulls 3 triggers and kills 3 people is going to get 3 life sentences. But if you're a cop, it's the weirdest thing for me to even say. And today is Milwaukee Police Appreciation Day, by the way. So if you want to bring treats to your local police precinct, by all means. How do you get that kind of protection? Do you understand that if I worked at a corporate job, which now I had my run with corporate America, didn't like it, wasn't for me. If a goddamn stapler was missing, Sherwin, there's a stapler missing from the supply closet. We're going to write you up. Wait, I didn't take no stapler. So there's so little job security. But imagine that. As much as we complain about the inequities that exist and how low the threshold is to arrest someone, to detain them, you're a black cop, you can shoot 3 people and still get a paycheck and still add to your pension. For that reason, I could see why someone who has a particular mental state of mind would want to be a police officer if you're black. But it's usually not like this, because there's other cases where what I can remember, and I'm sure there's others, I can't remember all of them, where our district attorney, John Chisholm, by all accounts, people think he's a nice guy. My interactions with him have only been business. I don't know him personally. His son managed Ernell Lucas's race for sheriff, and then John Chisholm's son, Ted, gets an $80,000 a year job being the chief of staff for Ernell Lucas. That's a problem, but we stopped talking about that. You know, Ted Chisholm, the DA's son, was 20 years old when he was managing Ernell Lucas's campaign for Milwaukee County Sheriff, and then Ernell Lucas hired him. This is a position that David Clark, who just ran roughshod over that department, David Clark didn't even have an $80,000 a year chief of staff, let alone hire a 20-year-old kid and pay them $80,000. Ted Chisholm doesn't even have a college degree unless he got it since they won the sheriff's race in 2018. And if he did get his college degree, he probably paid for the tuition on the taxpayer's dime. We should talk about that. The son of the Milwaukee County District Attorney is chief of staff for the sheriff. That's way too close for comfort, especially when you may have a sheriff's deputy that'll shoot somebody or kill somebody, or in the case of my friend Caesar Stinson, run through a red light and kill Caesar Stinson, and then the district attorney, John Chisholm, whose son is chief of staff for the sheriff, and then a year later, they arrest the sheriff's deputy that killed Caesar Stinson. Something ain't right. But today is Milwaukee Police Appreciation Day, so go bring them some brownies if you want to. Eileen Seeger. Hello, Sherwin. First time listening this week as I was getting my law degree, listening to the Senate hearings for the notorious ACB. I watch a little bit of those hearings, a little bit, and she's really good. She's going to do you know that? So they scrub her background and they find out these different, because jurists, they write a lot. I bet some judges wish they didn't write as much as they did, but they write columns, and they write, not stories, but there's some like official term for their opinions. They write opinions on a number of decisions. Maybe it's even an opinion that they decided on, or they may be giving commentary, legal commentary on somebody else's opinion. So she'll say where she agrees with Justice Alito, or where she disagrees with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or where she agrees with whomever. Her views are like straight out of 1930 Germany. Do you know that married couples, based upon her previous writings, and they asked her about it yesterday, and this was just in the handful of minutes that I was watching because it's a sham. The Democrats should have not participated in the hearing because they gave it credibility when they participated. Trump is going to get this appointee. It doesn't matter what they ask her. She's good at dodging questions. Lawyers are a different breed of people, especially when they get to that level, when you're going to be considered for the U.S. Supreme Court. She is really good. But based upon her previous decision, good in that she can dodge a question and make it sound reasonable. Married couples, okay, are going to have, married couples now are going to have a difficult time obtaining contraception. Married couples. If such a decision comes to the court based upon her previous writings and decisions. How they came to this one, I have no idea, but I think it was Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Amy's our friend. We like Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota. I believe she's the senior senator from the state of Minnesota. And there was another opinion or decision that Amy Coney Barrett wrote, and it was relating to in vitro fertilization for couples that cannot conceive naturally. In vitro fertilization, which is extremely expensive and doesn't always work, but it's an option for couples that want to have a child. Cool. Fair enough. Fine with me. Amy Coney Barrett would consider in vitro fertilization murder and would charge the individuals that were involved. And so there's fertility doctors that are actually coming out screaming against her appointment. We've never seen anything like this. Eileen Seeger, protest groups have been marching in Milwaukee city streets for over 100 days, no looting. Tosa, you make your city look like a blighted, boarded up neighborhood. Lemon Harris, good morning, Lemon. Joseph the Hitman Mensa. Oh, Joseph Mensa is an assassin. But have you ever seen such job security? When have you ever seen police officers rally, like the chief? They want the chief gone too. The chief in Wauwatosa. But when have you ever seen an African American get this kind of support for killing somebody? 3 people. I've never seen it before. There's something else that I think is worthy of note because today is Milwaukee Police Appreciation Day. And I believe somebody who's listening right now is baking cookies. Maybe they'll take the cops some cookies today. I think the union is failing to protect their officers. And they don't fail to protect them when it comes to when they need legal representation, when they need support after they've killed somebody while they were on duty. I think they're very good at that. But there's another issue that we fail to address, and it is the mental health of these officers. I was watching the morning news, local news today, which generally is bad because they just have like 4 stories and just repeat it for hours and hours and hours. So, but it's just the reporting is kind of sloppy and lazy. But there's a seminar for women, and there was a website, and you go to the website, you can sign up, and it's a Zoom conference like everything else in the world is these days, and it's about self-care and how women are feeling. It was just for women. It's only for women, only women. How that, taking time for yourself because the stresses of family life and work life and maybe homeschooling the children or maybe taking the kids to school and just all of this weighs heavy on women. And I found it peculiar because it was just focused on women. And here's a phone number you can call if you're feeling stressed out. Let me be clear, it's a wonderful service because everybody deals with stress in different ways. And to have these series of services, and it was really like a really thorough segment on local news this morning about these resources for women to deal with stress during the pandemic. I am unaware of any such service that exists for men. And I'm not over here saying, oh, the women get all the mental health resources. But when you promote it the way they did, it's almost like men are forced to our own devices when it comes to dealing with the same stress: family, the pandemic, work, homeschooling kids. Men commit suicide at a higher rate. My friend Samar Assad, one of my best friends in the whole world, committed suicide in June. Devastating. I cried for 3 days straight. He sent me a message on Facebook before he took his life, and I found it odd. Didn't really sound like him, and it seemed like he was going through a thing. But a lot of people, especially at that time, and he's a business owner, his businesses were shuttered at the time, so money wasn't coming in. And he sent a message, which I later come to realize was he was saying goodbye to me. And to this day, I regret not calling him when I got that odd sounding Facebook inbox message. You know what else made it worse? Because I shared the message, I screenshotted it and shared it. And then there were a number of people that knew how close Sam and I were. And you know what made it worse? Dealing with his death was hard enough. But the number of people that said, oh, Sherwin, you could have stopped him. Oh, Sherwin, he admired you. He looked up to you. You should have called him. And that was incessant. That made it worse. I think last month was Mental Health Awareness Month or Suicide Prevention Month. It should be 12 months out of the year, just like Black History Month needs to be year round. But in getting back to policing, there's something else that is going on here which puts all of us at risk and all of us at danger, including police officers. From WSAW, Wausau, Wisconsin, as the United States continues to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's another deadly trend that has been on the minds of law enforcement officials for decades: police officer suicides. Quote, people have been throwing the word around a lot lately these days. Pandemic. The police officer suicide issue has been a pandemic for probably 20 years, says Doug Wiley, a spokesman with Blue Help, a national organization that in part helps police officers struggling with mental health issues to connect to proper resources in their respective areas. More officers die by their own hand than by felonious assault every year, and it's usually 2 times as many. Numbers released by Blue Help in January of 2020 showed that in 2019, 228 American police officers died by suicide. That research showed an increase from a study done by the Rutterman Family Foundation released in 2018. The study also showed that in 2017, while 129 officers died in the line of duty, 140 died by suicide. And actually, the number is higher because there were some death determinations that came out. So this is from January of this year. And then the information I received yesterday has that number at 236. 236 cops committed suicide last year, and 129 died in the line of duty because policing is a very dangerous job. They pull somebody over, they can get shot. You see all this violence that people inflict on the police. The violence is police officers are killing themselves. Now, a couple of things with that. We got to take this very seriously. So if you want to have Milwaukee Police Department Appreciation Day, let's consider the fact that there are some cops that are so distressed and stressed out and in such bad mental shape, they're considering killing themselves. These are the cops that actually completed suicide. Think about the number of police officers that are thinking about it or on the verge every single day, meaning there's something going on. I don't know if it's home. I don't know if it's on the job. I don't know if the stresses of all of these protests and all of these people being anti-police. Here's what it comes down to. All you back the blue people that love the cops so very much because they protect you, maybe you should consider their mental health, because a police officer that has a gun, that has a badge, and has all of this authority and qualified immunity, that is on edge, is dangerous to everybody. That is no longer public safety. That's a public problem. Nobody talks about that. And the majority of the police officers that commit suicide, that complete suicide are men. I know that there's some of them are tough and some of them are cowboys. In my experience, the toughest men that I've ever met, is that feedback again. The toughest men I've ever met are more afraid than anybody. And it's a facade, it's a veneer. They have to keep up appearances. They use that toughness and that bravado and that machismo to mask the fact that they are hurting and they are afraid. There just aren't the mental health resources for men, or there's still a stigma, and that goes double and triple for Black men because we're competing with strong Black women. That's this stereotype. And like, what, I don't even know what that even means. And some people take it as a badge of honor to be called a strong Black woman, and I think that's great. But if I say, well, what's a strong white woman? What's a strong Latina? What's a strong Asian woman? It almost doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, she's a strong Asian woman. I'm like, how much can she bench press? That's what I think of. And so you have to be strong all the time, and these police officers have got to have this, this air of confidence surrounding them. But if they are hurting mentally, and if the union is failing to address the mental health of their officers, and I'm not saying that the unions are not, but if you have twice as many or 2.5 times as many officers that are killing themselves that actually get killed in the line of duty, because if you were to ask me, and if I didn't know the statistics, hey, Sherwin, I'd say, what? Sherwin, how many police officers are killed in the line of duty every year in America? If you just were to ask me that question, I would literally say 5,000. Like, oh my God, they're dying all the time. They're getting murdered. They're getting shot by people in trees. It's 129. How many cops are there in America? It's got to be like 1 million cops, right? 2 million cops? That's a lot because they seem to be everywhere. They seem to be in my neighborhood quite frequently. Tina says, my cookies are too good for MPD. Hope there's no MPD people in the chat. MPD has entered the chat. Police officers' mental health records are not private, so they are afraid to get help. Thank you for bringing that up, Tina. And maybe that's something that we need to look at, because mental health is physical health. It should be if it's not. If mental health is physical health, then anyone who gets treatment, it should be protected by HIPAA, Health Insurance Privacy and Portability Act. It means if you go to the doctor, they can't release your doctor stuff to the people in the world. They can't do. Federal law passed somewhere around 2002. Like, you go to prison for a long time if your medical records are leaked. Somebody goes to jail for a long time. It's a federal law, and there's no parole when you go to federal prison. Now, the other thing is this. I could see, like, people get stressed out in office jobs. People get stressed out working from home. And sometimes when you work from home, you don't even have to put on pants. You guys don't know if I'm wearing pants right now. One day I had to, during my broadcast, I had to get up abruptly. I just had to, I came right back, but I had to get up. And I had to, so the camera got the whole Sherwin, the head to toe, all the Sherwin. And I went and took care of what I had to take care of. And as I was going to take care of what I had to take care of during my live broadcast, I was like, I looked down, I was like, whew. I'm seated. Like, why would I need pants? Anyways, you can get stressed out. Having a job that, in the grand scheme of things, is not demanding, but maybe what you're working on or your project you're working on or a deadline can be really stressful. And that can take a toll on you. I've lost sleep over work before. I'm sure you guys have too. And if you aren't a police officer, I don't think that we know what it's like. And if you can get stressed out from a job you can do from home with no pants on, can you imagine what these cops go through? And I have to be real honest about this. I'm not anti-police. I'm not. And I know that sounds like when people say, oh, I have a Black friend, I'm not racist. No, I'm legitimately not anti-police. And I think that public safety is a serious priority because there are some people that we have to differentiate, and we don't do a good job of differentiation as a public. Some people they're not well, they're sick, they're addicts, they need help, and it's the addiction that is feeding their criminality. So if we address the addiction, then we're addressing a mental health issue, a physical health issue, and also a crime issue as well by addressing it from a health perspective. And then there's some people that are just bad people. I'm not one of those bleeding hearts who are like, oh, well, they committed that crime because they missed their mom. I'm not one of those that gives sympathy. If you seek to do harm because you just have sinister intentions and you're mad at the world and you want the world to feel mad with you and you go out and harm people, we can't have you in society because it's tough enough. But for people that need help, I think we need to differentiate them between those that are just bad people, like people that plot and scheme murders, like that kind of stuff. And so law enforcement is extremely important. And and I've had this conversation a million different times in a million different ways on several different radio networks. I've never been killed by the police. And I know that's a low standard, a low bar. I've had some unpleasant encounters with police. I really have, trust me, and they're very memorable. But they didn't kill me. I've never been beat up by a cop. I haven't. Some people have. I have not. And so in my 45 years, I have to look at that for what it's worth because I probably have had as many or more interactions with the police, and I count everything as an interaction. If I'm at a party and the cops show up because we're underage drinking, if I'm in a car and somebody else is driving and I'm in the vehicle, front seat, back seat, that's an interaction with the police. So over the span of my lifetime, or being in the car with my parents when they get a speeding ticket, that's a thing of beauty. Watching your parents deal with the cops, especially your parents that grew up in the Jim Crow South. I remember I think I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my parents worked different shifts when I was growing up. But then when my brother was born, there was always a parent that was home with one of us, so they rearranged their work schedules. And I can remember my dad picking me up from a family member's house because that's where I would go when my parents were working. And we had only been in Brown Deer for a few years, and at that time, very few black families in Brown Deer. Now, oh, Brown Deer's got to be 50% or more African American population. In fact, Wanda Montgomery is the village trustee. Never thought in a million years that the people of Brown Deer would elect a black village trustee. Village trustee is like their mayor. But there's so many black people in Brown Deer, like, oh, we'll vote for somebody that's black because we're black. And so we're almost home. And my dad gets pulled over. And my dad had I need you to picture this. If you can't picture this vehicle, I want you to Google it. Don't Google it now. Google it when we're done chatting this morning. He had a 1976 Ford Thunderbird. It was red. It had white leather and it had a white vinyl top. Whatever. I mean, if I see that car in Brown Deer at 12 o'clock at night, I'm pulling them over too, just because I got questions. Anyway, so we get pulled over, and I'm a kid, and I'm kind of nervous, kind of panicking because this police lights, just the presence of those lights is extremely intimidating. And there's that gap of time that feels like forever because you see the lights, you look around, right? You realize it's you getting pulled over because you always think, haha, some idiot's getting pulled over. How many times have you said that? You look in your rearview mirror like, damn, somebody about to get it, son. You're like, wait a minute, I'm the only car on the road, and you pull over. Hee haw. And so we were the hee haws. But then there's that gap of time from when you pull over to the side of the road until the officer gets out of the vehicle and approaches the driver. And immediately my dad just lays into this cop. And I remember looking at the cop's face because as a kid, I believe you were supposed to talk to police, really any adult, but especially police officer, with a level of respect. And my dad just lays into this cop. You're pulling me over because I'm black. God damn it, I'm going home. Leave me alone. And I swear to God, I thought my dad was going to pull off. And the cop was just like, step back. He's like the cop put his hands up. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. And the cop was like, have a nice night, sir. My dad drove and we went home. That was an interaction with the police. I have told the story about the first time I was arrested. Don't know if I want to get into that now. But that was an interaction with the police. It wasn't, I didn't do anything violent. I guess now I have to explain it because y'all are going to think I killed somebody. I was in second grade, and a friend of mine, his father was a fireman in Brown Deer. It was just a bunch of neighborhood kids, and he had a basketball hoop in his yard. So we'd go over to his house on Saturdays and we'd play basketball. And one of us got an idea because his dad had a bunch of axes hanging on the wall in the garage, and the garage door was open. And my friend Steve, his backyard was a park, A.C. Hansen Park in Brown Deer. And A.C. Hansen Park is just, there's a playground and there's just trees. Part of it is a state forest. And so one of us got the bright idea that we were going to grab an axe. And the oldest of us was maybe 10, but I think we were all in like second or third grade. Paul might have been in fourth grade because I think he was 2 years older than us. So we grabbed an axe and we marched like a little bunch of baby lumberjacks into A.C. Hansen Park, and we had one mission. We were going to cut down the biggest tree that we could find. We didn't think we were doing anything illegal. We were playing basketball. We all suck at basketball because we're a bunch of kids, and kids can't really play basketball. None of us went to the NBA. We see some axes hanging up on the garage wall. I still remember this to this day. We grabbed an axe and we went walking through the forest and found the biggest tree we could find. And we were very orderly and organized. I'm actually very impressed with our division of labor because you got in a single file line, you got 10 whacks with the axe, and you went to the back of the line. Then the next person got 10 whacks. I swear it took all day to cut that tree down. And after I can't tell you how long, we hear that big sumbitch start to creak. And we're just cheering and jumping around because it's the biggest tree that we could find in a state park in my friend's backyard, okay? And it starts to fall, and because like, wow, we did it. We cut this gigantic tree down. And when I say gigantic, I don't think, because we just went by the size of the trunk of the tree. We found the tree with the fattest trunk. We didn't even realize how tall the tree was because as it's falling, and it's the forest at the time, because we're right in the middle of A.C. Hansen Park. And the canopy was so thick that there was hardly any light coming in. So it was like dusk while we're cutting this tree down. As the tree is falling, the entire forest lit up like the sun was shining directly above us because the tree was so tall that it was blocking most of the light from coming into the forest. So the tree falls, we're jumping up and down on the tree and we're cheering. We're really proud of ourselves. And then all of a sudden we hear that thing the kids hear. Hey, you kids, what are you doing? Natural instinct, we all run home. Cool. We had a hell of a day. We accomplished something. We cut down the biggest tree that we could find in a state park. I'm at home, hanging out, doing whatever kids do in the 1980s when they're in second grade. So doorbell rings. Whatever, didn't think anything of it. Mom said, Sherwin, get up here or come here or whatever she said. And it was a police officer. And I had to go with him. And I had no idea what was going on, and I went with the police officer. My mother glad, because the cop told my mom what I did. I didn't know what I did because I didn't think anything about cutting down a tree. I was happy with my accomplishment. I should have went back and got the lumber. And I remember all of my other friends that I was cutting the tree down with, and we were so little, we all fit in the back of the squad car. And so now I'm going to jail. And we think we're going to prison. Like we're not talking, and I think a few of us were crying. And so we We get to the police station, and again, I'll never forget this. They separated us because I think they do that to get your story straight. And I had no reason to lie. I was proud of what I did. And so I sat in this room by myself, and then a police officer came in. He was in plain clothes, and he just thought the whole thing was funny. I didn't think it was funny. He was laughing in my pain. And he was like, "Well, I'm going to have to search you." I'm not kidding you. He said this to me. And I'm saying, "Oh, okay. Oh, I'm going to go to prison. I'm going to do hard time for lumberjacking without a license or whatever law I broke." And I remember when he searched me and he reached in my pocket and I had something in my pocket. You know what I had? I had a little canister of bubbles. And he just laughed and puts the bubbles on the table. And then our parents came and picked us up. Come to find out that cutting a tree down in a state park is very much illegal. It's against state law. We all got 6 months of probation, and our parents had to split the cost of the tree. And this is in like, if I'm in second grade, this is 1982, 1983. The tree was $1,500. The fine our parents had to split was $1,500. This is 37, 38 years ago. I heard, because I don't have a job. I'm in second grade, for God's sake. But I assure you that I heard about my parents having to pay the portion of that fine till I was 30 years old. That was my first interaction with the police. It was, I don't want to say it was pleasant, but when I look back on it, it was funny. And so if that is my first real interaction with being arrested, you can see how I just would not grow up with a fear of the police. And then seeing my father when he got pulled over driving his 76 Thunderbird to our house in Brown Deer, the way he talked to that cop and that cop just backed off. I never had an irrational fear of the police. I sometimes feel guilty that I've had that privilege, and it is a privilege because there are some people who have had opposite interactions with the police their entire lives. And it's those individuals, even though I can't relate on a personal level, I can empathize, and those are the people that I stand with. Udell Harris says, "Good morning, my brother." Tina Houston, OMG, picturing all of you in the back of that squad car. Yeah, we look like a bunch of gangster thugs, a bunch of little lumberjacks. So when we talk about the mental health issues that exist in our society, and the pandemic has compounded them, and I'd imagine if you're a police officer now, this has to be a very tough time for you. And I believe that as we move forward, it's going to be harder for big city departments to recruit police. Because who wants to be a cop now? Because of the behavior of a few and the protections that the unions give when officers do bad things to good people, or I guess bad things to bad people. But remember, even if you're guilty, a cop can't kill you. They're going to have a very, very hard time finding recruits. And if the number of suicides by police officers is higher than the number that are actually killed in the line of duty, there's a real issue that we are not addressing. And when we talk about defunding the police, maybe some of the resources that go to giving them more and more tactical gear should be allocated to counseling or mental health wellness checks or psych evaluations. I don't know what the policies are. I'm sure they vary widely. But if there is any kind of federal oversight over the mismatch of law enforcement, how they report crimes and arrests and racial data, there needs to be something. And this is for the health and safety and well-being of the police themselves first, but also for the general public that is likely to have interactions with the police, whether it's a traffic stop or whether you're a baby lumberjack cutting down a tree. When the police officers have the mental health resources that they need, sometimes they may need some time off because the job is very stressful. We as taxpayers should be okay with that. I would rather give them time off to spend with their family, to recoup, to get a little rest, than to pay them after they murdered somebody in cold blood on the street. And so a defunding strategy should be in part allocating resources so these cops are not on edge to the point where more of them are going to take their own lives and die in the line of duty. I don't know what the process is or how many psych evaluations that police officers are mandated to take, but especially after a stressful event, or maybe even before that, because a cop never knows when they're going to have to use their service weapon. And a lot of times, we got to admit this, it might be justified. I want to believe that more often than not it is justified, but then there's some cops that are just scared. You know how we've seen the dash cam or the body camera footage where that cop just walks up with their hand on their gun? If you're that scared, then maybe it's time for a little time off. We can work through some of that stuff with professional help. And if we have to seal their mental health records, then we need to do that, because if there are police officers that need mental health help and aren't going to get it because they're afraid of somebody finding out, then that's a flaw in the system. And where is the union on that? Where are the Blue Lives Matter crowd on that? It's almost like the pro-life crowd cares more about unborn babies than they do about children in cages or children in poverty. The Blue Lives Matter crowd care more about cops when they kill somebody and get arrested than the mental health of that cop on all of the other days in which they haven't killed anybody but may kill themselves. Numbers released by Blue Help in January of 2020 showed that in 2019, 228 American police officers died by suicide. That research showed an increase from a study done by the Rutterman Family Foundation released in 2018. That study showed that in 2017, while 129 officers died in the line of duty, 140 died by suicide. Quote, there's been an uptick, it seems, in the number of reported law enforcement officer suicides. Wiley explained, we don't know if it's because there are more suicides or more reporting of those suicides. Dr. Brian Wieland is a licensed psychologist at the Behavioral Health Clinic of Wausau, Wisconsin. He explains how dealing with the stresses of police work can add to mental health issues. Quote, think of any sort of horror that you've heard about in the media. Who has to be there? It's a police officer. Somebody, some physical human has to be there seeing everything that's going on. And I don't know if humans were meant to come in contact with that much trauma on as consistent a basis as police officers do. It's like bits of sand that keep getting put on their backs. If they don't have the tools or the resources in their life to be able to deal with that over time, it becomes unbearable. Wausau Police Chief Ben Bivin says that while he isn't aware of any past officer suicides within the Wausau Police Department, mental health is a topic that he and the department take very seriously. And I'm bringing all this up because today is apparently it's Milwaukee Police Officer Appreciation Day. And I think this is a fitting topic because if we're going to give tribute to police officers, because listen, I may sound anti-cop and every so often I got to give a disclaimer. I'm not. When I've needed the police, I guess their performance, if I had to rate them, it has varied. But you know, they didn't kill me. But some cops are really, really good people. And I've had the pleasure of knowing a couple. Some of the cops that I knew are not very good people, but most of them are just, they're great guys. In 2010, no, was it 10? Yeah, it was 2010. I used to be on another radio station. I used to do an evening hip hop, old school hip hop show called The Basement Crew on 98.3, long time ago, well, 10 years ago. And I realized something that when we were live on the air, I'm clearly telling everybody in the listening audience, and Jam in 98.3 has a huge listening audience. I'm literally telling everybody that, hey, everybody, I'm here at the radio station broadcasting live. I'm not at home. Duh. So my house got broken into. Came home from doing a show and, you know, they ransacked the house, but they didn't really take much. They got a briefcase with nothing in it, got a laptop, not much, but it's inconvenient. Then your whole sense of security is, you know, thrown out the window. They broke my back door, whatever. And so call the police. And what I come to find out is that if there's nobody in your house when you call them, they take their sweet ass time to get to your house. So they took their sweet ass time. Oh, don't touch anything. Like my refrigerator was open. And I said to the dispatch, I'm like, can I close my refrigerator? No, don't touch anything. Ugh. And so they showed up and they had a detective and he put fingerprint dust all over my goddamn house. I don't know what kind of dust that is, but it's everywhere. And then so my door is open because there's police that are coming and they're taking photographs and asking me questions and whatever. And so my door is open. It's just cops coming and going. I'm just sitting on the couch. Just cops are coming and going. And then and then one cop just came and just sat on the couch. I'm sitting on my love seat. He sits down on the sofa. And I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't you be like doing cop stuff? He was like, oh no, I just want to tell you that, I heard that, there was a break-in at your house. I just wanted to stop by and meet you because I listened to you on the radio. And I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't you be stopping a murder from happening? And he was just a really cool dude. And I come to find out that he and I knew a bunch of the same people, so whatever. But I've had enough interactions with the police over the course of my life to know that it is a profession that can change you no matter who you are and how strong you are, no matter how much training you give these police officers. The human beings are not trained to see and deal with that kind of trauma. And I'm gonna end on this. I'm very, very cautious about the chief selection process we have going on right now, because there is the assistant chief who is a finalist, and I guess rightfully so, because he's been with the department for probably 20 years, if not more. And I've known him for a very, very long time. In fact, he ran for judge a couple of times, and I managed and consulted one of his early judicial campaigns. And the conversations that I had with him, off the record, so I won't discuss anything that he and I were talking about, but just what he saw as a homicide detective over the course of his career, it was worse than any horror movie any of us have ever seen. And this is what Jeff Norman just saw going investigating a shooting or a homicide or the different things that police officers have to see in the line of duty. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all for listening, hearing about my criminal history this morning. Have a wonderful day. Wear a mask. The last day to register to vote by mail was yesterday. In-person voting starts on Tuesday in Milwaukee, and the presidential election is in 19 days. Tonight, there are going to be competing town halls. Joe Biden is having a town hall, I believe, covered by ABC News. Donald Trump is having a town hall at the exact same time, being covered by NBC News, because Trump decided he wanted to cancel his appearance for the scheduled debate, but he wants to have a competing town hall with Joe Biden. And so, how Donald Trump is very obsessed with ratings. So even if you don't watch the Joe Biden town hall, put it on in every TV in your house, and then go bake cookies like Tina Houston and just have the debate on. So when they calculate the ratings, Joe Biden beats Donald Trump in the ratings of the competing town halls. Have a good Thursday, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning.